Authorities say Ivory Welch killed 3 people in Mississippi yesterday. One of those victims, his own mother. That shootout between Welch and DPS happened along US 191 between 2 small mining communities of Clifton and Morenci. Now take a look at this. You're looking at footage from the scene in Ridgeland, Mississippi, where that investigation continues and where investigators say that incident took place. The U.S. Marshals Task Force, they were able to get their hands on an arrest warrant. They tracked down Welch to Arizona earlier today. Troopers say Welch began to shoot at them while they were attempting to make an arrest. Troopers shot back, killing him. U.S. Route 191 between Morenci and Clifton remains closed right now as law enforcement continues that investigation.